Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good Monday morning. It is 5:07 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, we'll talk to Joe DeGeneva at 7:05. At 7:35, Trevor Maddich on the latest Commanders win. And at 8:35, Julie Kelly. She'll give us an update on the January 6th cases. I'm Julie Gunlock, sitting in for the vacationing Larry O'Connor on a cold, rainy day. I'm not jealous at all. Joining me is Hans von Spakovsky. There we go. Manager of Election Law Reform Initiative at the Heritage Foundation and a former member of the Federal Election Commission. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Julie. And obviously the most important thing is it's the week before Christmas, so everybody better have their shopping
That's
pretty
right.
much done.
Hey, it's the week before, but you have more than 7 days. What is it, 9 days before Christmas? I think, Michael, is that right? I think that's right.
Yeah.
Close enough. Yeah. Get out there. Do that shopping. It is go time. So, Hans, how was your weekend?
It was great. It was great because it was all Christmas stuff. I have to admit, I did not pay a lot of attention to politics, just some of the fun stuff.
There was a lot of fun stuff.
There was fun stuff, but otherwise we went out and got a tree, put up lights, all kinds of things like that.
Oh, very Christmassy. Well, there was a lot of football.
Yes.
There was Army-Navy.
And I watched that. I was actually at a bar. I was at a bar. We were drinking and watching the game. It was great.
That's kind of a great day. So we'll start off with Army-Navy. Obviously, Trump was there.
Yes.
Vance was there. Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk. It was the whole sort of it crowd. Was there. Pete Hegseth was there.
And he's somebody who actually has been going to those games, unlike the current president, who apparently never goes to these games.
He went, I guess, as vice president and as senator, but he never went as the president of the United States. Doesn't that tell you something? Isn't that interesting?
It does, particularly because, tickets to that game are hard to get.
They are.
If I was a government official and I could take advantage of getting tickets, I would. Now, I actually think the most important guest there, because this really says a lot, was Daniel Penny.
Oh, yes.
Thank goodness he was invited after the terrible, horrible year and a half that he's had.
For those who our listeners are so smart, and everybody, I'm sure our listeners know, but Daniel Penny is the man who was indicted by Alvin Bragg for defending all of those people on a New York subway. Right. And he put a deranged, hostile man who was threatening to kill everyone, said, I will go to jail, in a chokehold. It did not kill him. That chokehold did not, but he later did die, and Alvin Bragg charged him. Meanwhile, letting the actual criminals off left and right in New York City. It was definitely a political move. It was sort of wrapped up in sort of race and racial agitation, a total travesty. So, yeah, he was there. He was the guest of J.D. Vance.
Yes. And,
a fellow Marine.
And I'm sure they enjoyed the fact that for the first time, in 2 years, Navy actually beat Army.
Yes, exactly. But it wasn't just the president-elect and J.D. Vance. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, was there. John Thune, who is now the Senate Majority Leader. Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, again, Daniel Penny. So it was quite a scene. Also, a lot of people were saying there were no Democrats, and there were very few Democrats, I will say. As our executive producer said, she said on that day, was it Saturday? It was Saturday, right?
Yes.
The Twitter was just alight with everybody. I felt like every single person, every single government official in D.C. was at that game. Again, mostly Republicans.
Right.
I didn't see a lot of Democrats, although Governor Wes Moore was there, and he took a picture with Donald Trump. So that was the one exception.
Well, I disagree with him on a lot of his policy ideas.
Yep.
But kudos to him realizing that when you're the governor of a state, you have to be welcoming to everybody, regardless of their politics.
Yes, it's just I agree, and good job, Wes Moore. But it is, every time. So the picture that was taken, Wes Moore, Governor Moore, was all smiles, greeting the commander in chief there. elect, and I can't help but think, 5 minutes ago he was calling him a
That's
fascist.
right.
So it's hard for me to move on a little bit. Also, Governor Ron DeSantis was there. He was down on the field. He was greeting some of the young cadets. That was great to see.
Yeah, but what you just said, it should make people realize that all these claims,
They didn't mean it.
all these claims made by the left that this was the next Adolf Hitler, things like that, was total. Can I use the phraseology BS? I mean, it was political fear mongering of the worst kind, and that kind of language. That shouldn't be used in American politics, those kind of claims. It's one thing to criticize somebody for what they believe, but to compare them to one of the worst mass murderers in history, that it just doesn't go. And they clearly weren't serious.
They weren't serious. And, it fuels deranged lunatics, the ones who then went on to try to assassinate the president.
Right.
And frankly, we're seeing this from the left right now with the assassination of the healthcare CEO. The left is and Chris Murphy, Connecticut senator, came out this weekend talking about how we have to really have a discussion about how this guy might have had a point. I mean, really excusing murder. This is sick, and we're seeing it on the left constantly. But again, when it comes to President Trump, they didn't mean it.
No.
They didn't mean it.
No, they didn't mean it at all. And, that radicalization, this is going on every day in classrooms in the Ivy Leagues and other colleges.
That's right. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about the game. There were some other really cute things coming out of this. Some of the just some more lighthearted things. There were some videos coming out of Vivek Ramaswamy saying that he contributed to Daniel Penny's legal defense fund last year. He said because he was wronged, and he said, "I hope Daniel Penny has a bright future and a good life ahead." Also, Pete Hegseth teaching Vivek Ramaswamy's son how to do a push-up. There were some just really great moments. And I felt like, boy, that was just a happy stadium filled with happy, excited people. There was sort of the we're back kind of feeling.
Well, yeah. And Donald Trump, J.D. Vance got a very welcome. They had a very welcoming crowd at this game.
Well, we will talk more about that. Our board operating engineer, Michael Shelton, was actually at the game, and coming up, we'll talk to him. We'll ask him what it felt like in the stadium, the reaction that Trump got, and maybe a little bit about the actual game. Michael's quite the football fan, so we'll get to that in just a moment. But now. It is almost 5:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Here's Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. Good morning, Jamie.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
News and weather are brought to you by WEPA.
So I just mentioned our board operator, Michael Shelton. He was at the game. He was there. Michael, good morning.
Good morning.
So what was it like? What was the vibe like? And what was the crowd like? Was the energy just incredible?
I could feel the energy right away pulling into the stadium down Sean Taylor Way and seeing all the cars and all the tailgating and all the tents in the parking lot and all the different people in Army and Navy gear. And you knew it was a special event, and it was important when I was about to pull into the parking lot, and Secret Service agents come up to me. Hey, can you please turn off your engine? And you got bomb-sniffing canine dogs, sniffing around your car.
Wow, wow. And so you're in the stadium. How long until the president appeared?
How long I don't think I was. I was trying to remember when I arrived late to the game, trying to get through Secret Service, but I think CBS only showed him for 4 seconds during the national anthem. So too bad, though. It's too bad America didn't get to see the reception that he got, and how our Academy members, how they truly feel about the president
and
elect.
What was that like? Was it a crazy amount of screaming and enthusiasm?
Yes, absolutely. It was a great ovation, and very well. And I can't do it justice. It's the whole Army Navy game experience. It's hard to put into words, and all I can say is television doesn't do it justice. When you're there and you see the cadets and the midshipmen, over in the corner of the stadium right near you, jumping and screaming and making noise and just so full of enthusiasm. And the flyovers and the cannons going off. And
great experience.
Again, it's something you truly have to. I would highly recommend anybody experience for themselves. Again, watching on television. I know football is a television sport, but it's just some events are meant to be seen in person. And Army Navy for me was definitely one of them. I'm so thankful.
That is true. Although I do have to say, look, I'm equal supporter of the Army and the Navy, but there were a lot of Navy people in the bar I was at where we were eating and drinking on Saturday, and they were definitely excited when there were touchdowns going on, and Navy pulled ahead early, very early in the game. By the way, I think I was much warmer than you. It was a really cold day to be outside, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, but I was there, not to mention Chris Plant and his best girl were there as well, and nice. Along with, of course, Sean Spicer, of course, repping the Navy. So, yes, it was chilly, but well worth the experience. So, next year, it's going to be in Baltimore. So keep that in mind for next year, next December. I highly recommend you check it out. I mean, if you can, I know tickets were hard to come by, and I mean, this was a very anticipated Army-Navy game. I mean, this is the teams had combined for 19 victories this season before Saturday's game, which was a record for the rivalry. And, of course, Army was fresh off winning their conference championship, too.
So the game was what was the final score?
The final score was 31-13, Navy over Army.
Oh, great. So it was a great game. You enjoyed it.
I definitely enjoyed it, especially since Navy won. Shout out to my dad and his brother and their, my late grandfather, all Navy veterans.
Well, one person that we missed today, obviously, is Larry O'Connor. He was very excited about it and was tweeting about, as you all know, his daughter graduated just last year from the academy. So he was a very proud dad, and I'm sure he wishes he had been there. He would have had a great time.
All right, I'm going to try to have to. I should start doing
working
what Michael
those
says.
Contacts now.
Start working on getting tickets now for next year's game.
We've got much more to come in the show. Right now, it is 5:21. So, Hans, it's nice to laugh every once in a while, isn't it?
It is.
And that is exactly what Trump is using X for recently. He went on X and obviously reacting to the drone situation, which, by the way, is so weird.
Well, the oddest thing about it is the government spokesman say it's not a national security threat. But then when you say, well, who's doing it? Well, we don't know.
I know.
How can they know the answer to one if they don't know the answer to that second question?
Yeah, and of course there are rumors and theories just, all over Twitter, which doesn't really help me feel better because some of the theories are absolutely terrifying, including nukes being here. And then that leads to people wondering, well, are they sniffing for radiation? Are these drones out there looking for I mean, again, I don't want to feed these rumors, but they're very plausible.
Every one of them is plausible given the dangerous world we live in.
Exactly. Well, Trump at least sort of poked fun at this. The drones were seen in New Jersey. They've been seen everywhere now. I feel like they're popping up everywhere. But he went on Twitter and he posted a picture of Chris Christie eating McDonald's, and above Chris Christie are drones dropping off the bags of McDonald's. It is hilarious. Now, of course, the left, like whatever Trump does, they go bananas. And all of these people, were sniffing their noses high in the air going, good luck telling your children not to be bullies. Well, you know what? I actually don't look to the president for parenting advice. Nobody should look to presidents for parenting advice. This was funny. Everybody needs to take a step back and laugh a little. Just as Hans says, it's a dangerous world. It's actually terrifying right now. We live in very uncertain times, okay? We've got a president. We still have a sitting president who has mashed potatoes for brains, okay? Let's not forget that. And Kamala, who seems to be inebriated half the time, she's the second in command, okay? And then we've got weird drones, and the world is crazy, and it's good to laugh.
Well, there's two things about this. One, it's really actually nice to have a president who clearly has a sense of humor.
Yes.
That's been so different. But it also goes to tell you the left has no sense of humor.
That's right.
That they have no sense of humor. They can't laugh. Anytime you make fun of anything, they get offended, and that in itself is ruining everyday culture.
Absolutely. Well said. We will have more on the drones, the creepy, weird drones, in the next segment. Keep it.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good Monday morning. It's 5:07 on News Talk 105.9, and we're chugging along. We are making sense of the news. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGenova. 7:35, Trevor Maddich on the Commanders' latest win. At 8:05, Dr. Betsy Congdon. She'll talk about a NASA spacecraft that's just days away from a historically close approach to the sun. Very cool stuff. And at 8:35, we'll talk to Julie Kelly. She'll give us an update on the January 6th cases. I'm Julie Gunlock, sitting in for the vacationing Larry O'Connor. We miss him, but I'm with my friend Hans von Spakovsky, the manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative at the Heritage Foundation. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Julie, and thank you so much for inviting me back.
Yes, well, we had fun last week, too. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about these drones. Hans?
I first of all, I have to say, I have not seen any hovering over my backyard.
I have not seen any either, but many have, and
Yes.
I have to say, I am astonished. This has been going on, what has it been, weeks now?
It's been several weeks at
It's been
least.
several weeks. There's nothing from the Biden administration.
Well, except last week they had two spokesmen, one I think from the Pentagon, one from the NR, National Security Council, and both of them came out and said, no, this is not coming from an Iranian mothership. No, this is not a national security problem. And then when they're asked, well, who's doing it? We don't know. Well, if they don't know who's doing it, how could they have answered that first question and said it's not a national security threat?
Yeah, it's frustrating, and it is giving rise to a lot of theories. And I'm not going to say conspiracy theories because many of them make total sense. In fact, I haven't heard one yet that seems crazy. I mean, okay, maybe the aliens. Maybe that's a little far-fetched, but who knows at this point, right? There is one theory, and I saw this a couple days ago, and it really chilled me. I really felt a little nervous when I read about this and saw this video. This is from the CEO of a drone manufacturing company that has government contracts. Okay, so this is a guy who has this video. Go on X and watch it. I'll tweet it out. And again, this guy is very humble. He says, I'm not usually on screen. I don't do these kinds of videos, but he had some theories on what these drones are, what they could be. So let's play cut 2.
I don't want to spread misinformation, as we know that there's a lot of that going around. But anyway, back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan had dismantled the nuclear program. And there were, with Russia, there were countless nuclear missiles that were disarmed and disposed of. Well, there were over 80, I believe. There were over 80 nuclear warheads that were in Ukraine that came up missing. Okay? We don't know where they are. Maybe somebody does, but nobody really knows where these are. And I speak with some pretty high-level government officials on this stuff, and It seems as though that is the case. So I spoke to a gentleman a few months ago who was trying to raise an alarm to the highest levels of our government, which they had their ears closed, about this one particular nuclear warhead that he physically put his hands on. He physically touched this warhead that was left over from Ukraine. And he knew that that thing was headed towards the United States. Okay? That is a very serious deal. And everyone knows that the United States government, this administration, is pushing to get into a war with Russia.
Hans, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the problem is we have no confirmation of this at all. But the real problem here is the government not telling us what they know and what they don't really know, and not telling us what steps they're taking to find out. I mean, for example, when the Pentagon spokesman said, "Oh, it's not an Iranian mothership." Well, my question was, how did you know that? Was it through satellite photography? Did the Coast Guard go out and look? There were no details given about any of that. And that's the way you have to deal with these kind of issues when they come up, is give the information you have, but they're just not telling us anything.
I think for the next, I think for this next generation, even I think it's all going to go back to COVID. And I know you're like, what are you talking about? But this distrust in government officials and what they say, and especially when they're dismissive like that, especially when they tell the American public, just go away, everything's fine, we've got this. That triggers me so much to those COVID days where people started to raise questions about that vaccine. And they were like, you don't need the details. Just listen to us. We're the experts. And again, it makes me more paranoid. It makes me more nervous.
Yeah, but you're not the only person.
I know.
That's the reaction everybody has. And these folks for the government don't understand that the way to actually calm people is to have a full, complete discussion, not just say, well, we're the government. We know what we're doing. Don't worry about it. That is what gets people upset.
It is. We've got more on this, and we'll get to it. But first, it's 5:43.
WMAL, making sense of world events, because those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Back up a few years. Do y'all remember when those drones were mysteriously flying across the Interstate 70 corridor from Colorado up into Nebraska, down here into Kansas, and out into Missouri? Well, it was believed that those drones were looking for radioactive material because there had been some material that came up missing here in the United States.
Again, if you're just tuning in, there has been really no official comment except for just move on, nothing to see here from the federal government on this.
Right. And that is not the way to handle a situation like this, particularly when people have visual evidence. Yeah, some folks are making mistakes. Some folks are, should we mention the former governor of Maryland?
Yeah, this is pretty amusing. Do you want me to kind of lay it out there?
Yeah, we can lay that out.
So we talked about how this is giving rise to all these theories, and, people have their own thoughts, but there are also people like Governor Larry Hogan, former governor of Maryland, our friend Larry. Last night, he tweeted this. I think it was last night. He tweeted this out. Last night, beginning at around 9:45 p.m., I personally witnessed and videoed what appeared to be dozens of large drones in the sky above my residence in Davidsonville, Maryland, 25 miles from our nation's capital. I observed the activity I feel like we should have music with this. No, I'm kidding, Michael, but I feel like, some sort of track.
From the X.
That's X-Files.
X-Files,
yeah. I observed the activity. There you go. For approximately 45 minutes. Like many who observed these drones, I do not know if this is increasing activity over our skies, if this increasing activity over our skies is a threat to public safety or national security. But the public is growing increasingly concerned and frustrated with the complete lack of transparency and the dismissive attitude of the federal government. Okay, so I agree with Larry here, but it turns out what he was videotaping was Orion, the constellation Orion, which is multiple stars sort of clustered together. And then in the tree line, there were two stars, Sirius and Procyon, that were visible. And some sort of amateur, sort of astronomers on X pointed this out to him. A little bit embarrassing. I mean, I appreciate Larry Hogan being concerned about this, but again, when you don't have much information from the official government, the officials in government, this is what you get.
Yeah, and look, some of the other reports of this can't be dismissed like that. Yeah, some of them may be people mistaking airplanes with their lights on, but remember, there have been instances of folks seeing these craft, and then when they're detected, all of a sudden they're turning off their lights and going. And we're not getting an explanation from the government. We need to have an explanation also from the government of what they are doing to try to detect it. And that we haven't heard either.
There's an awful lot of people that say because the government is so nonchalant about it, it must be the U.S. government doing this. And again, that's why, but they don't want people to know. And that, again, feeds these theories. Let's talk also about why these aircraft or drones or whatever you want to call them appear to be in the sky at night. Let's play cut 4.
Drones, they have no reason to be in the air at night unless you're doing some type of ISR work, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, looking for bad guys, or looking for a victim, a search and rescue victim, or law enforcement, or some type of military project, right? There's no reason for a drone to be flying at night. Unless you have thermal optics, drones really don't see stuff.
Again, this is this CEO. He is the CEO of a drone manufacturing company. Again, pretty humble. When he first came on, he said, "Look, I don't usually go online and talk about this stuff," but he gave some really interesting thoughts. Last cut 5. He says the only reason you might have a drone out at night is if you're looking for something. Cut 5.
The only reason why you would ever fly an unmanned aircraft at night, is if you're looking for something, whether it be a person or trying to smell gas.
Yeah, what I found fascinating about this was, look, the governor of New Jersey has been very frustrated over this, but we have all these officials, state police, and say, well, we can't do anything about this because the federal government has jurisdiction, right? And they're talking also about a federal law that makes it you can be criminally prosecuted for shooting down a drone because they classify it like an aircraft. But really, if a governor ordered the state patrol to go after, shoot down, or capture a drone, do they really think that the new Justice Department under Donald Trump is going to criminally prosecute them? I'm surprised these governors haven't said, well, to heck with what the feds are saying. This is my state, and I'm going to do something about this.
Right.
Why haven't they done that?
I don't know. And again, this mystery persists. It's making people very nervous. It's making people very uneasy. We're starting to hear reports also off the East Coast. There have been reports on the West Coast and in the Midwest as well, and in the South. I mean, and again, who knows? Are these people seeing Orion? Maybe, but it is making people very nervous. Again, we'll have more on this. It's 5:50.